Hello, unstoppable real estate investors. Thank you for your loyalty and your following during these technically challenged times. We wanted to go live. We've invited people to join us. We'll see if people do. But if you're watching this, we recorded and posted, and we appreciate your loyalty, your following, and your interest. And you will be rewarded handsomely for it because I've got the dynamic duo, Chris Squared, coming to you, Christian Weatherspoon and Chris Steele, my pals. I've known them from our Fortune Builder days to evolving past that into our own businesses. We've worked together. I've referred them a lot of clients, and they're doing very exciting things in their own real estate investment business and also helping other real estate investors and how they're marketing and getting deals and what kind of deals they're doing. Chris is the sales pro and the negotiator, and Christian is more the ops, technical, behind the scenes, make it all happen kind of guy. So they're a very good combination. And I just want to just jump right into it and find out, guys, like, we don't want to go into a lot of background, but how did your partnership start? How did you guys form your partnership? I want to spend a majority of the call on the exciting stuff of what you're doing and where you're heading and what you want to share with people about how you can help them with their businesses.
Yeah, I know we both have answers, and I'll just give it from the time that I met Chris, and he can take it away from there. And when I got into real estate investing, it was because I was doing all that tech stuff that you had mentioned that I'm good at. Now, I appreciate the compliment. I would say that I'm just okay, but I get better and better as time goes on, as we expand and develop. I had a passion for getting into entrepreneurialism from a really young age. And fast forward to my days of video production and then instructional design with you, with Fortune Builders, getting the curriculum together. Prior to even getting the curriculum together, said, this is ridiculous. Why wouldn't I do this? I'm ingesting all this information, and it's not just going here and then in one ear and out the other. It's going here. And I'm like, this is what I've been waiting for. I implemented, and then I was doing it solo for almost a decade. And I always wanted to partner with somebody, but I wasn't able to find the right person to partner with. And what really went to heart was all of the training about why and when to partner. I could have partnered with other people, but it wasn't until he became a part of Fortune Builders, which this is enter Chris. From your perspective, as it so happens, what took place from your perspective after that?
Chris?
Yeah, no, it's kind of interesting because, I think my overall career and trajectory, it's always funny. Hindsight is 2020, right? Looking back on everything that happens, and everything happens for a reason. I believe that, and God obviously has a plan in place for us, and we're just walking along that path. And so I've been doing sales for 25 plus years, in a multitude of different industries, but the bulk of them have been centered around real estate in some capacity, not actively selling houses, but doing a lot of like home improvement sales, windows, siding, roofing. So a lot of the renovation stuff. So I got a really good understanding of like how to estimate, how to look at properties, see what they need, and come up with valuations on what it's going to take us to do the renovations. And so fast forward, eventually I got a sales job that was a phone sales job, prior to working at Fortune Builders, which interestingly enough, I was interviewing for Fortune Builders at the same time that I was interviewing for that other company. And I think had I gone for the Fortune Builders role, I probably wouldn't have gotten the job at the time. And so I went with this other job, got some experience on phone sales, which most of my sales experience was in home sales. And then 3-4 years later, I ended up transitioning and came back to Fortune Builders. Went through this whole long process to get a job with them on the inside sales role, which was going to be in a totally different building. It was going to be secluded from everybody else. You were literally going to be on an island with nothing but sales guys, just doing
Silos.
sales.
Yeah.
No time. Yeah, exactly. So I went through 7 interviews, a 3-day workshop, and then an 8th interview, and then finally was told, like, yeah, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to offer you the position. Well, for those of you who are listening, many of you have probably heard that same thing. And if you have heard that, oftentimes it's very easy to just walk away and be like, okay, well, I guess I'll find another opportunity. But I had already burned the boats. I already said that I will work for Fortune Builders. And so that was going to happen. So my response was, sounds good. What position can you offer me? And that took Benny back. And he's like, wait, what? Nobody's really ever asked me that before. And so he ended up connecting me with Joey Dingfield, who was on the student onboarding team. And, lo and behold, I get that opportunity where now all of a sudden I'm in the main office on the exact same floor as all of the coaches, all of the support staff, directly downstairs from the ownership and the executive team, upstairs from, a bunch of other departments,
High
right?
profile. Yeah.
High profile and central hub, right? Like my role, like every student came in through me, so they had to touch me in some way and before they move on to the next department. And so it allowed me to interconnect with so many different people within the company. And Christian was on that floor, and to the point that he had mentioned about always wanting to be an entrepreneur, my very first real job other than a Boy Scout camp was at McDonald's. And the very first paycheck I ever got, most people at 16 years old, they get their first paycheck and they look at the dollar amount, right? And for whatever reason, I don't know why, but I didn't look at the dollar amount. I looked at the signature on the bottom right-hand corner. And my immediate thought was, if this person is signing the checks, giving this money, how much more money does this person make? And I immediately knew at that time I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so, fast forward to getting that job, I knew immediately I wanted to take advantage of what Fortune Builders had to offer. And so I started pouring right in. Christian and I met and connected. And oddly enough, we connected more on our faith more than anything else. And that's how we really connected. And, it was like meeting a brother that you never knew you had. And so, yeah, we just connected really well, and then decided to start pouring into working together.
Love the story, guys. And so tell me the formulation and the journey you've been on together since Fortune Builders. When, COVID hit, everybody got laid off. We all scrambled, and a bunch of us went out and made, put our own stake in the ground. So talk about that process, that transition from Fortune Builders to your own business.
The short version of the story is very closely leading up to when there were mass layoffs there with the previous company. There was a certain point where, as it pertained to real estate, I taught Chris everything he knew, right? And I only say that to say that to actually impress upon you the importance of not being content and comfortable with where you are in your learning journey. Chris could have gotten by with his awesome sales experience of 25 years and the real estate knowledge that I imparted to him, but instead he was searching for more. So the journey began with, hey, just what I know and what we're trying to figure out in this uncertain time where we're like, is the market going to blow up? Are the sea levels going to rise because of this? We have no idea what's going on. And he's like, we got to figure out more strategies. And as much as I am an integrator, as far as that's concerned, he was more of the active, like, I have to learn more. So he kind of grabbed me and said, we got to learn here, and we got to figure out new strategies. So, he basically eclipsed that at a certain point, right? And then started really actively chasing new ventures. And I was kind of putting the brakes on it.
You're the integrator.
We're kind of a mix of both, and we have to be, right? Because we have the two different businesses, REI Made Easy as well as Lazarus Property Group. But I'm definitely one of the more conservative, and he's more of the let's get it, let's go, and let's fail forward. I like them both. But anyway, that's a little bit more of a nuanced perspective that I wanted to offer, because I know Chris has very specific things to say about that question. It's a great one that we get a lot. But our journey was trial and error in some regard. because of that evolution of let's change a few directions, because everybody had to change
Yeah.
directions, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I think with regards to leading up to COVID, we had really started diving in. September of 2019 is when Christian and I started actively making offers on properties. When he, like a mama bird, pushed the baby bird out of the freaking nest, basically forced me to get on a phone call with an agent, which, somebody with 20 plus years of sales experience, you'd think, oh, that must be easy for you. And like, I'll tell everybody watching, like, if you ever had a fear of getting on the phone, like someone, even a vet, had that same exact fear. And so, I think, what I'd like to impart on you is that like that fear is going to be there no matter what. And it's with anything that you do, right? Generally, it's a fear of the unknown and not really understanding what to do or how to do it. And so, really, that fear gets pushed to the side just by simply taking action and doing it. And the more you do it, the more you're going to get comfortable. It's literally like anything, right? If you get on a skateboard for the first time, you're like, you're on ice, but like you do it every day, for 10 minutes or so, you start getting your balance and comfortable. And maybe now you're like a giraffe on, dry land, right? So, you just have to take action. But, he pushed me. And then, when COVID happened, as much as I'm not a big fan of government subsidies, our business was essentially subsidized by the government with, all of the unemployment and the COVID relief, because we were unemployed and now we were making full-time money with zero time work. And so we could have done what a lot of other people did, which was sit back and enjoy the ride, right? And the free paychecks. But there's not often that you get a chance to build a business and get full-time pay while you're in the process of building it. And so we dove full force and, we started trying out a lot of different things and, going into text messaging and cold calling and, a number of different things, and just really just dove head first.
I love it. And so that's the story of how you got started. Talk to me a little bit about how you were rocking and rolling on your real estate investment business and getting in a groove with each other on that. Talk about how that developed and then morphed into a whole nother part of the business of you guys marketing for other real estate investors.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. Chris, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So that actual trajectory was, it was a little bit of a combination of both, right? And part of this had to do with, a partnership that we were in that, just quite honestly, it was about a year or so long. It's probably about a year or so too long. But, we learned a lot through that process. I think, just an aside is I think people have a fear of getting into, bed, so to speak, with the wrong person. And that's definitely a fear that you should have. But I think, as long as you go into everything you do with the understanding that, hey, I'm either going to make money or I'm going to learn something, or both. And, look for the silver lining in everything. Right. And so we ended up in a partnership where we were doing marketing for others, basically right out of the gate alongside building our business. And so we learned a lot about the different marketing methods and, how we can grow and scale a marketing business, system development, things like that. And so we did that along the way, and it really gave us a solid understanding of, the process of data management, from, beginning to end. Hindsight, could we have focused more on the investing business and maybe scaled that quicker? Yeah, probably. But I think that was invaluable information that helped us get to the point where we're at. And then fast forward, our investing business took a little bit of time to kind of get ramped up, because again, we were in the middle of COVID. And so, the market was going up like a rocket ship, but, as a coach, you never want to take that and make drastic changes to the way you underwrite deals and the way you do business, because that's an anomaly, right? That's not a standard thing, right? And so what I've seen is investors and wholesalers who have made that drastic change during that vertical trajectory of the market, now they're having a really tough time dialing back in, right? And so I think we probably left a lot of money on the table over those couple of years because we didn't do that, and we could have gotten more aggressive. But I think from a course correction standpoint and just staying steady, I think it put us in a better position. But, now here we are, 3.5 years later, and we've got 2 full-fledged businesses, and we're looking at acquiring a few more at the moment.
All right, hold that thought. Hold that thought. Pause and don't forget where you're going. I want to emphasize a couple things that are awesome. One is the resiliency and perseverance. I knew you guys when you had that partnership that you learned a lot in. You learned a lot of technical aspects, marketing aspects of the business, but then there was a values disconnect. And you made that transition. You were strategic about it. You finally did it. You did it responsibly. You did it gracefully. You did it with integrity. I was very impressed. And then, oh my God, COVID. Now, poor Christian's been investing for 10 years, so he's having to be a buoy on a wild ride in the ocean, floating through all the swells and waves. And, through that tri-partnership and then adjusting. And then there's COVID. And there was this Rufus Thibodeau, and I do mindset and marketing Mondays. And we were talking this week, and he was telling me about this allegory that you guys remind me about this guy. This is what I'm impressed about by you two is, one, you drink your own Kool-Aid, you practice what you preach, but you're always refining your processes and systems. It's key to being successful as an entrepreneur. But Rufus tells this story about this little town that, some rich guy says, I need someone who can, he hires someone. There's a big fire, and he's gathering and interviewing a bunch of people, and he finds 2 people that he hires to put out the fire, put out fires in the town. It not necessarily that there was one happening, but he hires 2 people. One person gets to work right away, and he starts bringing buckets of water to put out the fire. And then he hires more and more people, and he's gotten to work like right away to putting out this fire, more buckets, more people, and he builds this whole assembly line. Meanwhile, the other guys disappeared. Everyone's wondering what's going on. But what the guy's been doing is thinking about how to create a system to bring in water to this town to put out fires, but just bring in a water system. And he does. He figures it out. The technology and the automation and the whole system, and it brings the water in faster. And so that's what I've seen you guys do in your business is you went from carrying buckets of water to each time you've had to pivot and adjust to setbacks that would have had other people be very discouraged. You're just resilient and persevered and well, what can we learn from this? How can we get better? And now where you're at is you have developed some pretty impressive processes and systems. So let's talk about what you guys, the strategies, the technology that has made you successful in a very short period of time together in your joint Lazarus Property Solutions. Is it Property Solutions?
Property Group.
Lazarus Property Group.
As investors, let's talk about that piece, and then what you discovered in your own process that had you then create Real Estate Made Easy. Because I think there's a lot of people doing marketing out there that overpromise and underdeliver, and they aren't drinking their own Kool-Aid. They're not doing their own system. They're basing it on concept, on theory. This is what should work, but they're not really eating their own food. And so that's what impresses me about you guys. So let's talk about what you guys noticed in Lazarus Property Group that started to work, and where was it that you guys said we're on to something? Let's create Real Estate Made Easy.
First, I do want to clarify for everybody watching that if you're using a system and you haven't been using it too long, you have to stick with that system as long as you're working it and using it. Then you can decide whether or not it's going to continue to work for you, right? So, and I know
refining, yeah,
right, exactly, and you have to know why you're going to transition and move from whatever system you're using that's working right now for you or not working, and understand, is it the system or is it you? Because you could be the bottleneck. I've been the bottleneck. Rayana's been the bottleneck. It's hard to believe, very hard to believe. Chris, we've all been the bottleneck in our own business, and it hasn't been the technology. So when we talk about what we have found works, and when we say we used to use X, but now we're using B, right? There may be A out there still, and we're continuing to find A, but we're not taking it lightly to transition from one to the other, and neither should you. So I just wanted to put that out there. You got to make sure you're using it correctly first, right?
It's like, yeah, it's like polling, right? Like I could say, like 67% of the people on, in the meetings that we're in are male, right? And it's like, okay, well, how many people are in the meeting? Right. Well, there's 3. Oh, okay. So really 2 people are male, but like, is that your network? Right. It's the same thing with your decision making with regards to the systems, right? Christian's talking about, like, if you're going to use a system, like, you can't just switch and move, all the time, right? You need to make data driven decisions. And like, just because you have a month's worth of data, that doesn't mean that that's enough, right? You need to make sure you have plenty of data over
a trend. Yeah, you do. And people understand that about marketing. Marketing is an experiment, it's a science, it's an art, and it does take time to figure out. And that is something I've appreciated about you guys with the clients that I've referred to you, that you hang in there with clients and you're very determined to produce results for them. So you keep figuring things out. You're not complacent. You're just like, here's our system, go. You're like, okay, not getting results. Let's see this. I know you've worked with Andrew, and we're very receptive to clients bringing you ways to refine and improve your process. But let's talk about Lazarus Property Group, where the idea for REI Real Estate Made, Real Estate Investors Made Easy came from. It was through your own investing that you developed. So talk about that.
My short version of that answer is, we were doing, and as we were succeeding, we wanted to share, because myself as a coach, in the same company that you were a coach as well, I had a desire and a passion to help other people. And I know that Chris had too, because, if you learn something, you learn it even more when you start teaching it, and it cements that knowledge for you. So having been a coach and in that space, it was really a desire of mine. And I'm just speaking personally. I know that Chris shares this, but I'll let him talk about that from his perspective. And that was, if we see what works, why wouldn't we want to share it? And if we take the time, effort, and energy to share it on our YouTube channel, what we do with Real Estate Investing Made Easy is we try to put out as much free content that's super valuable as absolutely possible, but it takes time, effort, energy away from Lazarus Property Group to talk about what's working. So we want to be able to create these small product price points that are low barriers of entry, that are either technologies that we created or efficiencies with technologies that exist with other platforms that already are there that we didn't create, to make real estate investing easier, right? So that was the reason. It was the catalyst, speaking of catalyst coaching, right? Catalyst consulting, to take what was working and be vocal about it, but then also make sure that it's worth our time and that the people who are serious about succeeding would be serious about succeeding enough that they would say, okay, it's worth it for me. And of course, we have the done for you stuff, but we weren't, not speaking to that. We're talking about like just the lower price point stuff where it's like 47.97 for this system that you guys spent 6 months doing to create and build and actually refine and test and track and measure. Yep. Yep.
I
Just cut
love
our
that
costs.
I love that you meet people where you're at, that you have different levels that you serve people at. Someone where you can do it yourself, and they're action takers, and they just need to learn something, a strategy, a process, a technology. You hand it to them, they're off to the races. Then you have the hybrid that's a little of each, and then you have the full blown, we'll do it all for you.
Right.
And so you can meet people where they're at. So,
Yeah.
Chris, say more about the process of how you guys developed Real Estate Made Easy through Lazarus Property Group.
Yeah, again, really it's learning by doing, and developing a process, understanding that, like, one of the key things that I learned through Fortune Builders, is document everything you're doing, right? Like, that was something that Dan Merrill was like, it was really pivotal in his development and building of Fortune Builders, right? Is just document every process, and so I think that's something that we really took to heart in what it is that we're doing. Define a process, document it. But with regards to Lazarus Property Group, I mean, we were essentially doing marketing for other people, and I was essentially doing all of the text messaging for other people, at the time. So I was spending the bulk of my time doing that, but learning that process, creating a system for that, and then eventually outsourced myself from that role to having VAs so that I can then work up the chain, right? And if you think of a conveyor belt, right, you've got every step in the business. You've got your data, right? Pulling your data, skip tracing your data, all that stuff. Then marketing, right? Texting, cold calling, whatever it is that you're doing. Then you've got, okay, getting on the phone, doing the lead management, which is your discovery calls and filtering the leads into the appropriate buckets. Then you've got underwriting the deal. Then you've got closing the deal. Then you've got transaction coordination, then dispoing the deal, right? And so along the way, Christian was more on the marketing business and the content creation, and I'm slowly outsourcing myself from the texting. And then I was lead managing and closing. Then we brought on a lead manager, and then now I was just underwriting and closing, and then handling the transaction coordination and disposition. And so every step of the way, it's like, figure out a process in that seat at the conveyor belt, and then document it, and then backfill, and then move on the chain, and slowly chop down the tree.
Jobs.
Say that again.
Keep working your way out of jobs.
Exactly. And also, like, I think it's really important to know who you are, right? If you, like, look, the reality is, and this analogy might not appeal to everybody, like Christian, who's not really a sports guy, but like, as a kid, when you're like going out and playing football with people, right? Like, what is the positions that people like always just inherently want to play? Like, everybody wants to be the quarterback, the wide receiver, or the running back, right? Nobody gets up and is like, I want to be the center that just grabs the ball and hands it to the quarterback so he could do everything, right? Like, that's not an exciting position. It's not a skill position. I mean, there's skill involved, but it's not like, it's not the highlight position, right? Everybody wants to be the highlight role. Nobody wants to be the backup kicker, right? So, but that backup kicker is making $400,000 league minimum, right? So there's value in that. But I think knowing who you are. So I relate that to the real estate investing business, is like, everybody wants to be the closer, but not everybody should be the closer, right? There's nothing wrong with being the guy who's a freaking genius when it comes to spreadsheets and data management, right? Like, that is like the unsung hero of the business, right? And so, it doesn't get all the glory all the time. You're not out there, taking down deals and, all that stuff. But without that data management being done properly at a high level, you as the closer or the person who is in the role as the closer, it's a lot more difficult for them to do it because now they're taking swings at balls that are, curve balls or foul balls, or just, they shouldn't be swinging. So I think it's important to know yourself. Good.
Chris, speaking of data management, I wanted to underscore that real quick because just so you know, Chris, you may be shocked by this. Over the past 2 months, by the way, this is a data point that I tracked. We've had over 500 subscribers specifically related to the data management videos that we're putting out, teaching people how to properly manage data, which was a surprise to me. But people are waking up to the reality, at least on our channel, right? That is important, that is a key critical piece to it. And it's not a sexy topic. You're not going to take that topic to dinner and date it, right? We want to talk about it, but we want to be like, yeah, sure, we need to pull this. But it's a really important topic because it's the very beginning of every one of these systems that Chris was talking about and that I was talking about, and the reason we wanted to share it, right? So
yeah,
that's
I think it's because I call it keeping the train on the tracks.
Mhm.
It's like it, and when you talk about like growing as an entrepreneur, I think a lot of people stay small, and I call them solopreneur slaves because they don't scale for a couple of reasons. One reason is they want to keep control, and they want to control everything. And in order to grow, you've got to let go of some control to gain more freedom. And that's like a huge mindset shift. And then the other thing is, I'm the only one who can do it as good as I do it. And so there's an ego shift. Like, so I have this term about you've got to slow down to speed up. You've got to start thinking about what you're doing. And that is the mindset shift of starting to get out of working in the business to work on the business that feels like you're going Mach 3 with your hair on fire and all of a sudden screeching to a stop to make a U-turn. It's hard for people to make that shift, which comes to what you were saying, Chris, is know thyself. Because I can learn technology. I can do it. I'm smart. I have a high IQ. I can get it. Is that the best use of my talent and me? No, because I can get it, but I've got to slow way down and work real hard to get it. And I can, but that's not where my skill lies. It's coaching, it's sales, it's talking to people, it's getting things started and moving and getting people moving. And it's so, I have to partner up with people that are going to do a lot of that back end operational tracking kind of stuff for me. I know that about me. So, and then that frees me up and my energy to be the best I can be in the role I'm supposed to be in. And that I want to talk a little bit about your partnership, because there is very specific skills. Yes, there's some overlapping there, but it's very clear you're on the front end, Christian's more on the back end, even though you do see Christian get in front of the camera and he's quite charming. He could probably run the world and do it beautifully, but still, talk about the partnerships and how you started to develop very specific roles and responsibilities. And then I want to talk about shared values after that. So talk about the distinctions of roles and responsibilities in context of you need to know yourself. You need to know what your strengths are.
Yeah, I'd like to segue from the last question you asked into talking about, us in particular in that way is what technology's made us successful.
Sure.
It's that we had to slow down to speed up because we knew ourselves. And where we divide roles is very telling of the technologies that each of us either created or are implementing some creation of right now. And that's everything from, like, we literally have a spreadsheet, and I'm not going to share it on the screen, but I'll share it with you. Like, for all of the systems that we built within our business, we have the business scaling system. Part of it includes the VA hiring system. It's what we had to implement to scale our own business. And I mean, all of these things are products and services we offer in real estate investing made easy. However, that's the point. We tried it, it worked for us, and this is what we had to do. That's me, right? I'm the VA hiring system. Of course, Chris involved himself in that too, but
And
we
you're the
divided it up.
spreadsheet guy too, right?
Well, he's the spreadsheet guy on the tech side, which is kind of a flip opposite. When I had mentioned
That's
earlier, we're
funny.
both integrators and we're both visionaries. So it is good, but we complement each other because Deal is doing our personal and business credit hacking system and credit arbitrage. So that was because we needed more access to capital to be investing. And he's like, well, guess what? I've already done. It's incredible. I won't belabor that point. We can talk about it later if you want, but it's super cool. So as just examples, and then we have the on-market offer system, the off-market offer system, prospect system for cold calling and for SMS text message marketing, lead management, underwriting. Guess who's the lead management? Guess
Chris,
who's doing it? Chris
Brad,
is doing the lead management. Brad is doing the on-market offer systems, and I'm doing other things like the contractor management system. So we're dividing roles up based off of aptitudes. We're dividing roles based off of the things that we have experience with, not just aptitudes. And some of it we're dividing experience, or we're dividing these roles and responsibilities up with who thinks that they're going to have a great time doing it and who doesn't want to do it, right? It's like, let's just get out there and fail forward in those areas that all of us are like, I don't really want to do this, but it's necessary. So we got to step out and be bold.
and then
Yeah,
know that you're going to find someone else to do it for you. Yeah.
I.e., Brad is on our team. He's a partner, not yet on paper, but this guy is just a rock star.
yeah, absolutely. Two things I wanted to bring up that you had mentioned, Rihanna, is, so the first thing is like slowing down, right? Like the Navy SEALs have a phrase, right? Slow is smooth, smooth is fast, right? Like, so just because you do something fast, if you're awkward at it, like you're going to, like stumble and drop, right? Like, so it's more about being smooth and efficient, right? Like a speedboat as opposed to a tugboat, right? So, that there's value in that. But I think the big thing that, like, knowing yourself is one thing, but how do you identify that? And I think it's very similar to the whole introvert extrovert thing, right? Like, and I think Christian and I, kind of display both of those, right? And so, like, Christian, as much as one might think is an extrovert, he's more of an introvert. And what I mean by that is he can operate as an extrovert, but it requires extra excessive energy in order for him to do that. And that actually depletes him, right? Whereas, like, he gets recharged being home alone, chilling, and just like relax and hanging out, right? Whereas
Or in
myself,
his little cave, studying, creating, analyzing. Right.
exactly,
And
exactly.
it's quite
Whereas
a nice cave he's created for himself.
No, thank you.
yeah, totally, right? Now, myself, if I'm like over a weekend, if I don't get out of the house, I want to rip my own head off. Like, it depletes me. Like, what excites me and what recharges me is communicating with people, being in the room with a lot of people, right? Networking. That gets my energy going. And so I think one of the easiest ways to identify, like, who you are, if you're not sure who you are, is what sucks the energy out of you and what pumps the energy into you. And when
Yeah.
you're doing those activities, you'll know that really quick, because on days when you're focused on spreadsheets, you're going to feel exhausted by the end of the day. But days when you're surrounded by other people and you're talking and communicating, you're going to be amped up, and you're not going to be able to sleep because you're so excited. If that's you, then you need to be on the phone with people. You need to be closing deals. You need to be communicating, networking, raising private capital, right? Like, all of the things that require human interaction, right? And vice versa, you should be on the back end doing doing all the behind the scenes stuff, the spreadsheets and whatnot. So, but yeah, circling back to, can you repeat your last question?
Um, I don't remember what my last question is, but what I know is talk about, you're talking about it right now, like how you started to see what was working, you started to document, you started to develop. When was it that you guys saw, wow, we have a whole nother business here, real estate investing made easy, based on what's worked for us? Because that's what caused me to refer you guys clients, was they're they're eating their own dog food, drinking their own Kool-Aid, I call it. Like you developed that because it worked in your own business. Talk about that transition into how you started with real estate investing made easy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
part of it was the long interview process that took 8 interviews only to be told, sorry, no thanks for your interest, like Chris experienced, right? So when we talk about our VA hiring system, we wanted to do things differently. I couched my experience and what I was using in the interview process that had been successful, brought in what Chris found to be successful. We even developed like spreadsheets in the very beginning to just see like, what do we need to do to take these employees through the process that at the end of it, we will be distilled down to really prime candidates to have second or third interviews with. And it was out of necessity, is my point. Necessity being, I can't stand idly by while other people who are investors in this uncertain time start losing their shirt when I have this secret sauce. Ostensibly, it's not secret because we'll be vocal about it and we'll put it out there in video format. That's my short answer, but I know Chris has more to say about it.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the big things is, not having a scarcity mindset. You've got a scarcity mindset and an abundance mindset, and there's many people out there, that teach and coach that talk about having an abundance mindset, when really that's just a phrase that they use. And the reality is they don't have an abundance mindset. They're not sharing the stuff they're actually using. They're just sharing the stuff that's going to get them paid and make them money, right? Which, like, hey, good on you, right? But at the end of the day, we wanted to be able to speak with integrity and say, hey, look, these are the things that we're actively using in our business, and it's helping us to grow and scale.
Yeah.
And it's easier to do, right? Like, it's a lot easier for me to document the process I'm actually using than it is to manufacture a process that's totally not in line with what I'm actually doing, right? Like, it's going to take me more time. So I don't understand that process, but also, the big thing we talked about, data and data driven decisions, right? Like, we developed our KPI tracking system, so that we could know what decisions we need to make, right? So, it's like polling ourselves, right? Like, and, again, I don't want to poll 2 people and then say, well, the evidence suggests that the majority of people, want, like Reese's peanut butter cups and hate Almond Joy. And while that might be true, because Almond Joy is terrible, but, the reality is we've polled 2 people, right? We didn't poll all of America.
You
So,
don't have enough data.
Exactly. And so, the KPI tracking system, was developed, where each individual department and each, seat in the conveyor belt has a way to track metrics. And then collectively as the business, we can track the metrics all the way through. And so for somebody who's a solopreneur, you can have, KPI trackers for each individual thing that you're doing. But as you scale your team, that's going to help you to offload that to the managers of each of those seats. And then you'll be able to sit back and view all of those KPI trackers and understand how to steer the ship, right? Those KPI trackers, the way we look at them is those are literally our GPS navigators, right? Like, it's telling us, okay, did we make a wrong turn here, to our destination? But if we don't track and measure metrics, we will not know if we're off pace.
Love that. Yeah, it's interesting how many entrepreneurs, not just real estate investors, don't track anything and just, they're not scheduled. They think they have a business. What they have is a product or service that they're selling. They don't have a business, and they're just trading time for dollars or a product for a sale. But without tracking them, one, you can never sell that business. If you're not tracking the performance and the finances and the KPIs, you're either shutting it down or letting it fail, and that's it. There isn't an asset that has value that you can sell. So
Yep.
tell me, what is it that you guys do in Real Estate Investing Made Easy? What do you do for clients in that business?
I'll let
Yeah.
Christian.
Cool. Yeah, no. And by the way, Chris, thanks for going into the KPI stuff. You just kind of make me a little bit happy. I got a smile on my heart because nobody wants to track the KPIs. And just so you know, and it may come as a surprise to people watching this based off of what you've heard so far, Chris is all about tracking KPIs. I did not have to, continue to convince him about any of that whatsoever. He was already on board. And, that's just speaking to the fact that both of us are like integrators and visionaries in our own right in different respects. But as far as what we do in Real Estate Investing Made Easy, the easiest way to explain that is in Lazarus Property Group, we create systems that we use for our own business to create scalability in our business so that we can actually succeed with countless amounts of hours of research and getting on the phone and Zoom calls with people who own other products or creating other products and services and platforms and technologies so that we can check the box. And by that, I mean, does it work? Is it worth our time? Or does it not work at all? And we can determine we're not even going to attempt to use that because, as you said from the beginning correctly, we're always trying to get better. So then we take what we do in that business and we talk about it to the benefit of other people, to the benefit of other investors. And obviously it's not like 100% selfless because we want to be compensated for the lack of time that I myself spend in our real estate investing business, which I miss all the time because I want to get involved as much as I can. But then we said, okay, look, we're going to put this out there. Some things are free. The education side, we had a text come through that Chris got like yesterday, and I'll let him share the verbatim that said, like, I cannot believe like the curriculum that you guys have put out for free that's in depth on your YouTube channel. That is something that I've never seen anywhere else unless it was behind a paywall. Right. So that is our goal. And then if people find value from what we're providing, then, our hope is that they would use the same systems that we have that would benefit them and their business, follow the systems that we are using as far as like what we've created, and then build upon that success.
Yeah, keep talking because Chris is just doing a bio break real quick.
Gotcha. Awesome. So that's what we do. It's basically, you could distill it down, but I think it's a cheap and tawdry definition to define real estate investing made easy as a products and service based business as well as an education business, because it is, while on the surface, according to the IRS, it is that. But what we really pride ourselves in is just getting to the point when it comes to what is actually working and being completely transparent. It's like a magnifying glass on our own real estate investing business, when you would be surprised, many investors, people that are influencers out there in the community, whether it's on YouTube or otherwise, that have 100,000 subscribers, they're talking about real estate, but they're not doing real estate. They're not doing it. And is that okay with me? It's not. That's why we'll continue to do real estate investing so that we'll be in the know and figure out what's working in this market today and what might tomorrow.
Yeah, and you really have to be on the ball because what was going on in 2020, 2021 dramatically changed halfway through 2022. You have to really be paying attention. You can't be complacent. I noticed halfway through 2022, everyone went from direct seller texting campaigns and then started shifting into agent outreach campaigns. There's certain demographics that work for a texting campaign and others that don't. Doing a texting campaign to a 55 and over community isn't going to work as well as cold calling, you know. So it is, you really do, you can't stress enough market research and to continue to pay attention and master your markets, because otherwise you're going to be left behind with old strategies that no longer work. And I think people get complacent and lazy, and they don't realize, and the reason they do is you get worn down trying to do it all yourself. You cannot do this business by yourself. You just can't.
Yeah.
Christian, you did for a while, but in order for you to have scaled, you wouldn't have been able to do that by yourself, right?
Right. It would depend on what you measure success by, right? If you're saying the end result that leads to success for me is I'm flipping houses actively and I'm making a lot of money, then okay, sure, I was successful. But to me, it wasn't success in the way I define it, because I was working 40, 50, 60 hours a week for this other job, while at the same time, and yes, I was flipping houses by myself at the same time, I'm putting in 20, 30, 40 hours a week inside of my real estate investing business too, burning the candle at both ends. I didn't have a wife at the time. I didn't have kids at the time. So it was a little bit easier for me to justify, well, what else am I going to do? Go to the bar and drink? No. I was doing that and it was fun while it lasted, but it is not sustainable. There's massive burnout. And that's why we put the systems together to help other investors get out of that. I just signed docs with the government to pay more money and buy myself a job that costs more time. That's called entrepreneurialism. That's fake. You really want to be an entrepreneur, you need time freedom, you need financial freedom, whatever it looks like for you. Doesn't mean $1 million a year. A lot of people could be happy with that, but a lot of people could get by with 100K a year. And they'll be like, I'm perfectly fine. I'll flip 2 houses a year and I'll wholesale 5 deals a year and I'm golden. Beautiful.
Yeah,
You're successful.
to Chris, what you said earlier, that you really need to know yourself. You need to know success to me is very different. I remember getting the first glimpse of how humble my idea of wealth is. And it was actually liberating for me. It's way before I moved to Asheville, where the Biltmore estate is, the Vanderbilt's mansions all over.
Right.
And I used to come and visit my dad here. And I didn't move here because my dad was here. It's kind of weird how that all happened. And I love this area, Asheville, North Carolina. But when I would visit my dad, we would always go to the Biltmore estate. And at the time, it was like 16,000 acres. And the Biltmore house is 175,000 square foot French chateau, 4 stories, 32 bedrooms. It's massive. And we would go on tours there and we would tour the house. And I remember at one point thinking, this is all too much. Like, I wouldn't even want this. I wouldn't want the responsibility for it. I wouldn't want to manage it. I don't need it. I don't get it. I don't need it. And I thought, wow, that level of wealth is so beyond me. And what, and I didn't think like, wow, girl, expand your vision. I just thought how liberating that, because in the Western cultures, more, consumerism, it was actually liberating. Like, oh, my idea of wealth is much humbler than that. It's still decent, but it was, for me, liberating. And I think that that's important for people to know, what is wealth to you? What is success to you? Having an end game, having an exit strategy, having an idea like, is $100,000 a year enough for you? Great. You are wealthy. You are successful. Okay.
Yeah.
And for me, wealth is the minimum definition of wealth is your passive income pays for your cost of living and everything that you do not have to work for a living. Now, it goes beyond that, but that is the baseline definition of wealth. When you think of Robert Kiyosaki or anybody that talks about wealth, it starts with your passive income frees you up from having to work for a living. Chris, do you add to that?
Yeah, totally. I think that's really important, and I think that's extremely important going back to identifying who it is you may want to partner with, right? Is making sure that those are in alignment.
Values.
Yeah, because like for us, Christian and I, it's like yes, our underlying values is our belief in God, and right, and like our faith, right, and so like that's like the main foundation. But that alone, is good. But if Christian's definition of wealth is like, hey, I just need to make $75,000 a year, and that's it. I'm fine with that. Meanwhile, I'm like, yeah, I want to create an empire that can give back, $1 million a year to other people who are less fortunate. Well, the only way to get there is if we build a $10 million business and we can give 10% of it away. Well, his value
That's a disconnect,
is a
right?
disconnect, right? And so we need to make sure that we're on the same page. And I would encourage anybody who's considering getting into a partnership, like the reality is a business partnership is basically like a marriage, if not almost more committed than a marriage, because you're generally going to see each other sometimes even more than your spouse, right? Like the time you see your spouse, usually you're sleeping for 8 hours a day, and if you're an entrepreneur, you're working minimum 8 hours or more, right? And
Usually
so
10 to 12. Yeah.
exactly. So if let's just say you're working 8 hours and you're sleeping 8 hours, that only leaves 8 hours in the day. So are you going to see your spouse for that full 8 hours? Are you going to go to the gym? Are you going to go, hang out with some friends, right? Like chances are that amount of time you're spending with your spouse is less than your business partner. So I would argue it's even more important to vet and nurture that relationship, as far as like figuring out, are you in alignment, and date before you marry, in that regard. But one thing I wanted to go back to with regards to you talking about, drinking your own Kool-Aid, and using the systems pitching the systems that you use, right? Christian and I had this conversation recently because we get hit up all the time by other people who have software and systems that they want us to pimp on our YouTube channel. And the first thing we do is we go on their website and we look at the product, and if it doesn't even remotely appeal to us, or we don't think that there's going to be any value in it, or is just like, that doesn't really fit what we're looking for, we're not going to use it. And we've had people like, hey, like one of the emails we got was like, hey, this is our first time really diving into like influencer style marketing, like what do you guys charge per hour, and we'll set up like we'll give you a free account or something like that. And it's like, we don't charge for that. I'm sorry, like that's not what this is about, right? Like we want to promote products that we know, trust, believe in, and want to use
And
ourselves.
use. Yeah. Right. So I have a meeting right after this, so we can't go over. So I want to transition, guys, into talking about where you're heading in the future and sharing with our audience anything you want them to know about what offers you have out there, what services you provide, and make that transition. I know that you're developing some things. You might not be ready to share everything about what you're working on, but I'd love to give you an opportunity right now to pitch and promote in a way, but I know that's not your
Yeah.
approach. You can pitch and promote, but share how you help other people and in what products and services you have to offer that can help other investors succeed.
Yeah.
I'll,
So
I'll put one thing here in the beginning. It's about meeting them where they're at. And
Absolutely.
Chris, take it from there.
Yeah, so just on the front end of that, like what's new, what are you guys doing, here in the near future? So, we're currently two businesses. We actually recently partnered with Groundswell Assets, which is a commercial syndication company. So we are diving into the multifamily syndication space, and we're diving pretty headfirst into that. And along the same lines, one of the reasons why we created this partnership was because, they have the resources and the relationships, and the knowledge of the multifamily space. I'll be the first to tell you, like, my knowledge of the multifamily space is very limited, but it's growing every day. But what they saw in us was exactly what we've been talking about: systems, processes, and things that we can put in place to refine their relationships, their process, and their workflow, so that collectively we can turn it into a well-oiled machine and really just grind out a ton of offers and start gobbling up large assets. So that's what we're doing right now. We're dedicating a substantial amount of time, energy, and effort towards that. And so for those of you who are watching who have a desire to get into the multifamily space, just be prepared for multifamily investing made easy, because that's what we're going to do. Is we are going to, being as though we are new to that space, we're coming into it with the lens of somebody who doesn't really know much and wants to know. And we want to take what we're learning and distill it down into easy, digestible, bite-sized bits that anybody else could come along and get value out of and then start implementing. And so we're going to be putting together tools, trackers, calculators, all different types of things along the way that they can leverage in their multifamily investing space. So that's one thing we're getting into. Another thing is we are in
quick response. So you've got this model that, okay, we're going to go and learn and get into the game and get sweaty and bloody and dusty and scarred and marred. And then we're going to come home, getting showered off, think about that journey, write the book about it. And then we're going to show other people how to do it so they don't have to get bloodied, scarred in the muck and mire. You're going to make it easier for them. You're trailblazers. And so you found a business model that works. We learn, we go through the trial and error, then we perfect and refine, and then we share it with others and help others succeed. And then we rinse and repeat, and we do that again and again in the areas that we want to focus in.
Yep, 100%. Yep. And
a lot of integrity too, because like you said, there are a lot of people in the space. That's why I'm very clear. Look, I'm not a real estate coach. I mean, I'm a business coach. I work with real estate investors. I'm very clear about that because that has integrity. And so what I love about how you guys operate is you practice what you preach. And so many people in this space do not. They have a widget and a gizmo and they want to make money on that. I know someone that I was working with who teaches this whole wholesaling system, pretty basic. A lot of people are doing it and isn't doing any real estate investing or wholesaling themselves anymore.
That's unfortunate because it's a very profitable thing to do. Just saying.
It's a great way to raise capital.
It is. I wanted to build on that in, 15 seconds or less, just to highlight we're doing all of that Chris talked about and that you just framed in just the most beautiful picture of muck and mire and writing the book and being vocal about it. Chris said 100% that's what we're doing. What I'll say is all of that is couched inside of the experience of people who have been doing this and are seasoned. So we're not saying we're going out on a limb to just like share our journey with nothing. You need a coach, a mentor, somebody that you're aligning yourself with that's going to have more experience than you, that can help pick you up when you fall, or teach you the things to prevent you from falling in the first place, right? And we're implementing the systems that have worked in a multifamily fashion in our residential flipping business or real estate business in general, right? And that's my 15-20 second on that. But it does lead me to say this: if you're watching this and you're thinking, man, I don't know how to get started in real estate investing. I've been trying to. I think I'm already started, but I've already fallen down a bunch of times. I don't know what to do. My suggestion for you would be this: align yourself with somebody inside their own business who's already successful that you can say, what do you got for me to do where I can learn? Even if it's for
Isn't that
free.
what
Now,
you guys did with Brad? And he's evolved from different roles in
yes,
your business? Yeah.
yes. And we told him, we said, hey, look, and the same thing is with Luis Ortega. He's a really, really great asset to our business. He's also, he shares the same values. Actually, so does Brad. Like, we're all Christians who believe that we want to work unto the glory of God, and we want to do this to bless the Lord, but bless others too, and not do it out of selfish ambition. And everybody has a piece to that, right? Where sometimes it feels that way, but like we need to check ourselves and hold each other accountable as we continue to trudge forward. But if
Yeah,
you're
and
in,
I think it's very important. I've said it before. There really has to be a values alignment with
right,
partnership and the people working your business. So what's the offer you want to make? And then what's the rooftop message? So start with what's the offer you want to make? And then we'll wrap up with if you each had to jump on a rooftop and had a captive audience and you could give them the best advice possible, what would that advice be? But first, is there an offer? Is there something that you want to let people know? Hey, you are our ideal client avatar. You are the people we want to help. Here's how we can help you.
gotcha. Whether you're a solopreneur or whether you've been doing this for years, the first place to go is see what's working right now currently. That's go to reime.us. Put your information in that opt-in box so that we can know who you are, connect with you, and keep in touch. But we'll send you the top must implement tools that are working right now for business scale. That is, it'll expose those things that you may not already know if you're seasoned, and then it'll also take you from maybe not knowing a lot to sharing with you all of the high level versions of these other products and services that we can offer. And then we can jump on a call one-on-one if it sounds like you want to take any piece of what you learn in the top 5 must implement business scaling tools PDF that I wrote. It's a book that I wrote. So I gave him my little signature there, and I hope you guys like it because I put a lot of faith and
You'll
trust
have to
into
send me
that
a
book.
copy.
I will send you a copy. I
Okay.
will. And we've updated it every year, and it's a brand new one this year. It's different than the last year's one. So if you're watching this saying, oh yeah, last year I
That's
got,
an
it's
integrity.
changed.
How you guys do things is you stay current with what you're doing and you keep it updated. I love
That's
it.
why they're the 5 must implement tools that for business scale that are different every year. So
Yeah.
go check that out and then connect with us, because the best thing that you can do for yourself, and this is my rooftop message, Chris, of course, I want you to add to this too. It is never stop learning, never stop growing. Just like Chris, at a certain point, as far as real estate, I taught him everything he knows. I cannot say that anymore. And I'm very pleased for that. There's been things he's come back to me and said, I know you've done creative financing deals before in the past for flips, but have you ever considered doing it for rentals? And I said, no. You can do that? Like, okay, Chris, I'm all ears. But then there's times where he has to be the student and I'm the teacher and vice versa. So never stop learning how to do that. Subscribe to the Real Estate Investing Made Easy channel on YouTube, because we're not going to stop posting free content that you can immediately gain value out of and be able to take actionable steps towards success in your real estate investing journey.
Love it.
Exactly. Yeah, and
So
I think
Chris,
that,
what's your promotion and what's your rooftop message?
yeah, for sure. So, one of the things that we are, hard at work really developing right now is our whole conveyor belt system, right? Where every step along the conveyor belt, there's a system and set of processes and tools and resources that you can use to implement in your business. And so, of course, as Christian mentioned, subscribe to the YouTube channel, go to www.reime.us and submit your information, and we'll stay in touch with you. And as those different tools are coming out, we'll certainly let you know about that. And yeah, we're here to help. The reality is, while many people are trying to sell education, right, you still have to go out and implement. What we're trying to do is provide a lot of that education for no cost on our YouTube channel, but then the tools and resources that are going to help you leverage that education, we're going to have some packages and products that you can just pick up, for pretty inexpensive prices to get started and just start adding them to your golf
Arsenal.
bag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your rooftop message, Chris?
My rooftop message, is much like what Christian mentioned is, always be learning, right? Like you always want to continue to learn, but always take action, right? Like, I have a phrase that, I think I coined, but I don't think anybody else has coined it. So I'm just going to take credit for it. And that's boot camp Betties. Don't be a boot camp Betty. When I was at Fortune Builders, I would go to these boot camps and, I would see, the same people over and over and over again. And every time, it's like, awesome, how's your business going? How many deals have you done? It's like, well, and the direction of that conversation as soon as and it was very much like when I first got the job at Fortune Builders and I did the orientation and they introduce you to everybody along the way. And it's like, I had 3 questions, like, what's your name? How long you been here? How many deals you done? And it's like, John, 3 years. Well, I haven't started my business. Well,
I was the only one who was actively doing deals.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm like, I immediately knew I didn't want to be the guy in 2 years from now where some newbie is coming in, all excited and thinking like everybody here is doing deals. And I'm like, well, like, don't be the boot camp Betty girl, right? Like
or workshop Willie, right?
Workshop Willie, yes, exactly. So, take action, even if you're going to fail. The reality is, right? Like, here's another sports analogy. Christian, I'll explain this to you afterwards.
Yeah.
Hall of Fame baseball players, right? They hit 300. They have a 300 hitting score, right? That means they fail 70% of the time. 70% of the time they fail and they're Hall of Famers, right? All you have to do is hit 3 out of 10 and you're going to be a Hall of Famer. That's it, right? So you don't have to be this hot shot that takes down every freaking deal, right? Like, just continue taking action, one step in front of the other.
Yeah, Mikkel Jensen said it best. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Right. And you have to make offers in order to get deals. And you learn by doing. And I think a lot of people I coach, and I don't coach a lot of newer investors anymore. It was very draining. It's one thing to coach mindset and fear and getting into action. At some point, you've got to be willing to take action and fail forward and just do it. So I want to thank you both for taking time out of your busy schedule. I respect and admire you greatly. I just love who you both are, what you're up to, what your vision is. I'm glad we're friends and colleagues. I appreciate your generosity with the technical issues. I think anytime we get together, it should be the two of you together, not one-on-one, because I think there's a dynamic when you're together that's really awesome and magical. And so thank you. Thank you for what you're doing in the industry. Thank you for leading by example and for wanting to add value. And did you guys ever talk to Ammon?
Oh yeah, I had a conversation with him.
Okay, good.
Yeah, there's a lot of alignment there. Everything that we talk about, like Ammon, he's a great coach. He's a great guy, and he lives kind of just over the hill from me.
Yeah, and he's very much about overcoming this industry trend that happened many years ago of charging an arm and a leg for education. And actually, it's almost like a little bit of a socialistic way, in a way. Let's make education free. And then then you invest in implementing what you learn. And so you're
going to have to invest in implementing no matter what.
You are.
But it's about having that guide with you to do it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. I will I will post this in my group. I'll send you the converted raw footage so you can put it on your YouTube channel. I'll put it on mine. I appreciate you so much. Thanks so much. God bless. You two are awesome.
Thanks, Rihanna.
Thanks
Appreciate
so
your
much.
time.